Leaving aside that this was like a professional boxing death stare before the main event, which was no event. These two, Vladimir Putin and Barack Obama, could not agree on a Syrian policy, so we don't have one. But the fact of the matter is it comes at a time where we have pretty clear proof that the Russians are interfering in our elections, the degree to which, and the tampering with democratic documents and emails and servers and all that stuff gets kind of complicated here. But the bottom line is, it's scary stuff, whether you're Republican or Democrat, that they could so easily do this. To former Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff on these tensions and what they mean. Secretary, very good to have you. You know, right or left, this just is wrong. But they seem to be able to do it with abandon, huh?
Well, Neil, first of all, good to be on the show. You know, there's a history of the Russians actually trying to affect and interfere with elections in other countries. We've seen that in Europe, where they use a variety of techniques to spread misinformation or to attack people that they don't like, or even to put out information that is damaging that they've stolen. So I can't say that it's shocking to see it here, but it is very concerning.
You know, maybe you could just help me with this. I mean, the Russians keep saying we're not behind this, but we're okay with it. We're okay with this stuff leaking out and coming to Democrats, but no similar zeal to target Republicans, which leads me to think that maybe Vladimir Putin would prefer Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it's very revealing. What does it tell you?
Well, let me begin by saying I think the experts have come out and identified a strong likelihood that the Russians were involved in hacking into the Democratic National Committee. Now, I will tell you, historically, we have seen foreign countries hacking into databases of both Republicans and Democrats because they want to see what policymakers or potential policymakers are thinking. What was different about this was that some of this information wound up in the hands of WikiLeaks with the pretty clear expectation WikiLeaks was going to put it out there. And that's moving from simply collecting information to actually trying to affect public attitudes. So if you look at what has happened up to now, most of what has come out in the public arena through WikiLeaks has been damaging to Democrats. And you could certainly draw the conclusion that whoever is putting this information out through WikiLeaks wants to hurt the Democratic candidate.
Why? Is it assumed that Donald Trump is better for them?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. First of all, obviously, Secretary Clinton is experienced. She has a track record with the Russians. She's been pretty tough with the Russians, and I'm sure for that reason the Russians would rather not see her across the table again. I also think, above and beyond what their preference may be in the outcome of the election, I think there's a genuine benefit to the Russians in creating upheaval and disconcerting the American electorate and the electoral process. You know, the Russians, in my view, wrongly believe that we try to influence their electoral process. When we, for example, speak about human rights or the importance of democracy, they view that as tampering with their electoral process. So they may be viewing this as kind of turnabout. They're going to do to us what they imagine we do to them.
You know, Sunday is the 50th anniversary of 9/11. Voters now, this struck me as odd, but I guess it is what it is. They're more worried about our security, more worried than they've ever been. What do you make of that?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. First of all, in terms of the risk of a large-scale plot along the lines of what we saw on September 11th, or the plot to blow up airliners that we frustrated in 2006, I think we're very much safer against that kind of a plot because we have built a very robust intelligence collection and analytical capability that would detect some kind of big operation. But what I think has changed now is the terrorists have moved into a lot of low-level terrorism, what I call crowdsourcing terrorism, where they either have relatively small-scale plots or they simply encourage people who are their supporters to go out on their own and to freelance. So it looks like we have many more incidents, even though the scale of the incidents is obviously much less than September 11th. And this is very hard to stop, because as we've seen historically in this country, if someone gets a hold of a gun and whatever their motivation is, they choose to kill people, it's very hard to stop that altogether. Sometimes we can respond quickly and suppress it, but to absolutely eliminate it has never proven to be a real possibility. So we're going to have to adjust to a world in which we may have these relatively small multiple plots against soft targets, as we've seen particularly in Europe in the last year.
All right. Secretary, thank you. I think scary stuff, as they say. We appreciate you taking the time.
Good to be on.